Quick story. Okay, we haven't announced this yet, but we're wrapping up a $4 million raise at Hubble, which is incredible. Now someone's calling my phone. This is crazy. Part of that journey. So we launched Hubble in March. So it's been 8 months. And it has truly been exceptional. Like so many incredible people, incredible stories. We got a couple experts from Hubble that are here today that are incredible ladies. And as we were gearing up for our seed round, I was extremely confident because you're in a good position when VCs start reaching out to you and they start saying, hey, when you guys announce your round, let us know. We'd love to participate, right? This is usually a good place to be. So we lined up 20 investor meetings. And in my mind, I was like, I think by like the 5th or 6th, we'll probably have our lead. We'll be good. I kicked off the meetings and it was pass. All 20 of them in a row passed on the deal to lead the round. And I want to just also encourage anybody who's out there raising, anytime someone passes on your deal, never take it personally. Seriously, every single time someone passes, use it as an opportunity to learn, to figure out how can our business be more valuable? What can we do differently? How can we add more meat on this bone? But just never take it personally because it happens. It's part of the deal. The 21st investor that we pitched ended up leading the round. So they're going to write a close to a $3 million check. And I share this story because also a successful fundraise and a non-successful fundraise actually look very similar. They're filled with no's in the beginning. And eventually it's the teams that stay at it and the CEOs that stay at it that eventually get to a yes. And it only takes one person. It takes one person to lead the round, one person to believe. Once you have that person, there's more momentum. And I don't want to say investors are followers, but people like when other people are interested in something. It makes the deal more attractive. Today, lastly, the last thing that I'll say is today the hope is simple, that you leave this conversation with a little bit more clarity, more perspective, and more belief in your ability to raise. So with that, I'm going to introduce our favorite head of community, Sasha, and we can dive in.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, as Kevin said, for showing up. We know this is our second fireside chat and the second of many. So I'm really excited you guys are all here. So how this is going to work is we're gonna have about an hour-ish of actual fireside chat, and the last 15 to 30 minutes are gonna be Q&A. So pop your questions as we go along in the chat. I'll have another screen open that I can kind of copy and paste things, see what's pertinent to then interrupt and kind of bring that into the conversation. Please stay off mute during this time. At the very end, for the last 15-30 minutes, we come off mute and we'll pick around 5 or 6 questions. And then we're going to be doing a very exciting prize at the very end. Right before we wrap up this call, Kevin's going to pop in a link to a LinkedIn post. And the winner of the prize will be Kevin's going to help you with your fundraise from A to B. And which is yes, a very exciting prize. So what you're going to do is in 1 or 2 sentences, you're going to pitch your product in the comments of the LinkedIn post. I'll talk about that at the very end as well. And then by tomorrow, end of day, we're going to pick a winner. And then you're going to get a nice call with Kevin, going through your fundraise, getting it all set up from point A to point B. And there we go. So I'm so excited to introduce our panel. So we have Bettina, Olivia, Aaron, and Judah. And we have 3 investors, 1 incredible founder. And we're really going to get into the nitty gritty. So again, please use the chat to engage. We'll be asking some questions. So put in that's really helpful for us to use the chat to kind of be on the right track. So I'm going to ask now the panel to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Bettina. I'm going to go to Olivia, Aaron, and Judah. It's the order you guys are on my screen. And let's take it away. So Bettina, come off mute and tell us who you are.
Hi, guys. Bettina here. Right now, I'm calling from Mexico City. Who am I? I'm a Hubbler. I love being on Hubble. I forget for how long. I don't know, Kevin. I forget, but it's been a joyride. And I love Boardy, so it's like my two best communities. I'm an angel investor, quite active. I'm very active board advisor. I'm a senior citizen, 40 years in tech, Silicon Valley. I retired for 2 days and I couldn't do it. So I'm wired to help, and I really love to be a very hands-on advisor and hope to meet many of you. That's it. And I'm always in a bucket hat, always.
She's always in a bucket hat, can confirm.
Yeah.
Olivia.
Amazing. I'm Olivia, everyone. I'm one of the partners at Forum Ventures. We're an early stage fund focused on B2B technology. Our whole team is former venture-backed founders and operators. The firm started 11 years ago from this insight of building companies is really hard and lonely, and it is maybe one of the hardest roles in the world to start a company from nothing. So our entire focus is really, how do we help make that 0 to 1 journey a little bit more accessible and successful for people? Really roll up our sleeves and work closely with founders. Since my time at Forum, we've funded 500 plus companies. They've raised more than $1.5 billion in follow-on funding. I work really closely with a lot of our portfolio companies on all things fundraising. So really excited for this conversation today. So thanks so much for having me, Kevin and Sasha.
Amazing. Erin, passing it over to you.
Thank you, Sasha. So it's been great getting to know Bettina through Boardy. I was an investor in Boardy. I've been doing angel investing for about 10 years. Part of a few things I'll note, I call myself a Toronto COVID refugee. So I've been part of the Toronto ecosystem, but moved out to the Atlantic coast and really shifted from a B2B SaaS world into a lot of hard tech and deep tech. So ocean stuff, energy, healthcare, really different spaces that I've found quite intriguing. And I love working with founders who have that technical angle. So, you know, we get PhDs coming out of universities and they have a really different set of capabilities and challenges that present in different ways as they're looking to scale. My background is in brand and culture. I was head of global brand for KPMG, and I ran brand culture for Interbrand in New York, which is a bit of my time in the US, but I do have a Canadian perspective. So happy to share that however that's relevant. And lately I'm part of a group called East Valley Ventures. We look at ventures together. It's a collection of angels as well as family offices, which is a really kind of poorly understood category of family office money. Lastly, I'm managing partner of Imaginal, and we work with companies that are looking to build to sustainable scale. So I'll pass it on to our last co-panelist.
Judah, take it away. Our male on the platform. Let's go.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the call. I'm super excited to be here. Just quick background of myself. Lifelong entrepreneur. I actually started my first company when I was 19. Had no idea what I was getting into, but fumbled through a small exit. Certainly not enough to retire like Bettina did for 2 days, but after that worked in corporate for about 8 years. Worked at some great companies like Salesforce, NetApp, and then actually got recruited to actually incubate a new business unit at a larger company called Gartner. So they're the Magic Quadrant company. So bid out, I was the first hire on the go-to-market team to basically put together 0 to 1 for them. But that was an interesting opportunity because it was a startup within a larger company. And then for the past 10 years, I founded now 3 companies, and all been in the kind of mobility and ad tech space. The first one was a rideshare. That one was relatively small exit, and then the last one was in the ad tech space, helping mobility companies offset their costs via advertising. And now CEO of North America, and that was I had an exit with that, and then now CEO North America at robot.com. I do also some angel investing. Huge fan of both platforms. So whenever I got the chance to be part of it, I've seen the impact it's already had, and super excited to be part of the discussion today. And I'm based in San Francisco. I also like to say I live out of a suitcase, so I spend a lot of time traveling, mainly for work, but a little bit for enjoyment when I get the chance. But yeah, it's great.
I love it. We have a very excited panel. So actually, Larry asked a very good question in the comments. So comment a 1 if you have started a business, and number 2 if you have exited a business. I think that's really exciting. You can do 1 and 2. I think that's really fun to know kind of who's in the chat. Ooh, we got lots of 1 and 2s. I love it. We're gonna start the panel just talking a little bit about 2025 in a nutshell, but mostly looking in 2026. It's 2026, guys. It's a bit stressful thinking about that already. So we want to look at what's actually changing in 2026, looking at investor psychology, market appetite, founder expectations, the whole ecosystem. So I'm going to throw this question in the panel of what do you see the biggest shifts happening in 2026 and beyond?
I can start. I think one of the things that I've seen over 2025 for sure, but will likely continue into 2026, is just a greater level of investor interest and rigor around go-to-market and initial validation with customers. So I know this isn't always the best thing to hear as a founder. I think a lot of people want to say, I've got an idea, I'm at the idea stage. I want investors to give me money to figure out if there is something here in this idea. I've worked with about 40 of our portfolio companies this year to raise subsequent rounds of capital, and really saw a big shift towards the tail end of this year of just greater level of rigor around diving into what you're hearing from customers, what are some of those early discovery conversations, what type of early signs of kindling or traction are you guys having? So I anticipate that will continue into 2026. I would say if you are in a category where there are a lot of tailwinds or hype, that's a little bit of an outlier situation. But for everyone else, I would say continue to double down on customers being the most important thing, and that focus will reap great benefits during fundraising.
Go
I'll
ahead.
add to that. Sorry.
Go ahead, Bettina.
Yeah, I think it's very much a wedge that you can exploit your go-to-market. What's happening now? I mean, it hasn't changed from 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Founders are obsessed with the market they're chasing, the product they're solving. But now, 2025, 2026, and it will just continue, AI accelerates everything. So you can get your product out, get it in front of customers, and the wedge, the competitive advantage you can create for yourself is smart, creative go-to-market. And I focus on that with my founders as part of my key due diligence. Aaron, you and I spoke about this yesterday, right? So I urge everybody, think about that, and we're here to help you. I mean, there's so many.
It's such an interesting time. Totally, Bettina. I mean, I've been using the phrase around here that go-to-market is the new moat. And you also have to define what is go-to-market, right? Like it's not just getting out there, it's actually going beyond traction to something sticky where customers are staying. Like how many people have had an outreach from a productivity AI in the last few weeks, right? It's probably nobody on this call hasn't. And so if you want to get some customers and show you've got a bit of traction, that's easy, right? Really showing that you're thinking about their kind of post-purchase moment, we used to call it. What does it take to get them to stick around? And how can investors believe you that you have the chops to make that happen? And so there's a real sense of, I guess in terms of trends, investors wanting to see that you understand well beyond the next 6 months or 12 months. And of course, that's hard with AI. We know that it changes every day, every hour. But what is it that you can show them that means you're thinking a bit beyond it? There's two other trends I'll mention. So deep tech Deep tech is the new tech. It's definitely a big era, and layering great hardware with software and AI is a really interesting space. And then the third one that we're seeing, and I think you've seen this too, Bettina, is seed strapping. So people that will get pretty far without raising anything, and then going out for a seed round and having traction and being able to stop at that. So investors who can get that, they know that they'll get in at a great stage and they won't be diluted because the venture is going to go back to the market many times for many rounds.
I love seed strap. It's my new favorite word.
Within the go-to-market, what are some of the ways that founders who are kind of looking at this looking at go-to-market, there's so much conversation around GTM, around how to actually optimize for it. Like what are like 3 things or so that they should really be looking at to get, Aaron, as you said, that stickiness, to go beyond just getting customer acquisitions, but getting champions and, customers who are champions for the brand.
Yeah. You want me to go back into that? I mean, I think there's a few ways to think about it. I heard this great analogy of poets versus plumbing, poetry versus plumbing. Have you heard that saying? So there's some profs out of Stanford I love, and they've been talking about the challenge of, the poetry is important. You need that vision. You need that to get your pitch, right? In any capacity, you need to touch into the emotional drivers. But the plumbing is the operations, the implementation, the execution. I think when we use the term execution, it sounds like it can be done, right? Plumbing is like, it always has to work. And so being able to recognize the different capabilities that enable that plumbing is pretty crucial, right? There's a lot of operational things. There's a lot about leadership changing how they lead, right? And changing how you lead means knowing that at a certain point, you're the bottleneck. That's that crucial stage, right? So if you can bring to life what the plumbing requires for your venture, and you don't have to have all the answers, but you're thinking about it and you know that you won't have all the answers, that's going to be a big deal. So that's my 2 cents on it.
The only thing I'd add is, and I'll caveat by saying, we have both a studio and we have a pre-seed accelerator and a pre-seed seed fund. So we do a ton of stuff in this like very early pre-seed beginning days. And I'm actually not looking for optimization of your go-to-market. I would say once you're raising seed capital leading into Series A, like you are trying to demonstrate with that capital to investors that you have repeatability in a few go-to-market channels. There is like velocity in how you're taking the product to market. But I think there's very basic things that folks could benefit from thinking about. I notice a lot of conversations that I have for founders who are doing pre-seed fundraising have just not had enough conversations with potential customers and like haven't really tested out very many hypotheses. And so like the advice that I would give everyone on this call is like at the beginning, really what I am looking for is like all focused on volume and testing. So I want to see that you are someone who can identify an experiment to run. And that is starting by like, who do you think is your ICP, the people who are going to buy this? What do you think is kind of the real problem that you're solving or the wedge of this solution? Are you testing with those people and like, what's the feedback that you're getting? Did you talk to 20 people and like, are you asking questions to understand their buying process? What needs to be true? Like much more in this exploratory phase. And I want to see that founders are consistently having 10 plus customer conversations every week. And through those little kindlings, this is maybe the optimization piece. When you have clarity on like, okay, we are clear that this is the wedge, this is the messaging, the articulation that is resonating with people. I want to see that you're testing like 1 or 2 channels. Like maybe you're posting on LinkedIn and that's the thing that's getting you. Maybe you're going to conferences. Like it doesn't need to be anything overly complicated at the beginning. It's just like this small phasing of validation. And I would say at the pre-seed stage, if you have that, like that is much farther than a lot of people and gives investors conviction. Like I'm going to give, Sasha or Judah some money and they are going to pour like a little bit of gasoline on this tiny little kindling that they have, versus I'm going to give them this money and they're going to have to spin around in circles to figure out who is the person who's buying this, where should they be spending time.
That's amazing. Judah, I saw your hand raised. What do you say for this as a founder, from a founder perspective?
Yeah, and I honestly don't. I think I did that on accident, but I'm happy to kind of give you my thoughts, and obviously all great points. Also want to preface it too, because this is a very interesting question, right? Or just topic, and it's unfortunately maybe sad because it's not necessarily, easy. But hey, fundraising is not easy, or we would not be on this call, right? I mean, let's just be real. It's a necessity, right? And it's a tool, and it's a mechanism. And I think it's critical the way you frame it, right? I think from a mental perspective, that's probably the most important thing in the process of fundraising, no matter what stage you're at. But I would say, what I think one thing just to call out is we've seen a massive amount of information, and this is what dominates the media, right? Are these massive rounds in AI with, it's like literally zero product market fit, or it's a wrapper, or it's just something that's not truly paying a point. So let's just assume no one on this call is that, because that skews reality, right? And that makes it like, oh, I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing. And so the reality is 99.9% of all other startups that get funded are, really in I would say, a very tough spot where they're competing against a lot of other amazing, talented entrepreneurs. And I think the thing that has happened, and this has been mentioned, is really AI is an enabler, right? So there's a whole concern taking jobs. No, what that does as a founder, the expectations for you is to basically do 5 times more output. And the beautiful thing is it's not that hard to do. And so I think when we look at the shifts for most investors, right, other than maybe like 4 or 5 kind of major, just like checks that we don't even talk about, is really like how is that individual, like, not just pitching a vision, right? Or just having even a strong team, or there's a lot of pieces that are important. But I think to justify having the money, and I also think it's a double-edged sword, right? You want to take the money at the right time, because as founders, once you get the money, you start spending it. I mean, it's just almost it's just it's the nature of life. Most people don't typically hold back. They want to take bets, but you want to take those micro bets, but you want to also be in a place to where you've essentially built somewhat of a machine, right? And that machine can be very niche, and it can be like automated, talking to as many customers as possible, and really understand that it's going to be a tough challenge, but it's very doable, because there's a lot of dry capital out there. If you look at the capital markets, they really haven't opened yet. So there's a massive opportunity for companies to get this opportunity to get those bets that then allow you to get to that next stage. So it's a very loaded question, because I'm assuming we're talking more early stage. But again, I think if you're looking at that early stage, leverage AI. Leverage, like, the expectations are just to do more with less, which maybe is not what we want to hear, but it's the reality, and something that your competitors are doing, or others, and competitors are also other founders, right? And we're obviously all it's a community. We're supportive, and this is what this is all about. But you're competing for checks. You're competing for that lead investor that Kevin mentioned, because that lead investor, they only take so many bets per year. So that's what I would leave with, more of nothing kind of concise, but just kind of overall thoughts, and kind of what I've talked to from a lot of my VC friends.
I love that. What kind of going off of that trend, what are you seeing, like, again, to the group of what do you see investors prioritizing now that they didn't 5 years ago? And do you see an expectation mismatch between what founders are expecting from investors and what investors are actually willing to take a bet on?
I got one. I advise, especially now with AI, it's a tool that can accelerate you. Don't try to do everything. focus on your wedge. Like what Olivia said, right? Prioritize, get it in front of, I don't know, 10 customers. Go test it. I get cold messages. My inbox is crazy, but I will read. And if you tell me I have 7 LOIs, I've spoken to 10, here's the feedback, here's my forecasted ARR for this myopic wedge, that's more meaningful to me as an investor versus I can do everything. So that's my advice, prioritize.
Yeah, I'll build on that. You are not for everyone. Don't try to be for everyone. I am not for everyone. Investors are no different, right? And if they're good, they have what's called an investment thesis, the specific area that they have spent either loads of their career in or are super passionate about or a deep expert in. And so, any investor conversation is good, but, it doesn't end with someone saying, no, you're not for us. It's always about, if we aren't for you, then who? And I think especially with angels and family offices, they are well connected, right? So it's really important to think about those environments, because these are the folks that want in at that early stage, so they get up on the cap table in a good position, and so that desire to really understand who you are speaks volumes, and it could be in quirky ways, like Bettina's in Mexico, but there's snow falling. That might be your clue that she's a crazy skier, and I love her for it. There's all sorts of reasons why people are passionate about things. My husband published a volleyball magazine for 15 years, but you wouldn't know that from his career and what he does on the surface. But there's a depth to every person, and those connecting points can build the relationship piece. And if you're going to get an investor involved, you actually want to work with them. Like, why do we do any of this? We're going to work with these people. So think about making clear who you are. Don't try to be for everyone. Strategy is choice. Make a choice.
Yeah, those are great points. I would add that 99.9% of companies should not raise venture capital. And it's not the best way to build a company. Obviously, I think much of the external narrative is it's fast, it's sexy, it's great. I want to be able to raise from VCs, but I come from a family of small business owners. I have a family-owned business, and there are many great ways to build companies. I think that's one sort of mismatch of expectation is, VCs ultimately make money by returning capital back to their LPs. They pay back their full fund size to the people who gave them the money to begin with. And then every subsequent dollar that you make after that from any type of liquidity, the GPs are going to get 20 cents and the LPs get 80 cents. And so for better and sometimes for worse, we're playing a game of big outliers and pushing for a lot of growth. And that's not the best for every company. And I know lots of people who are running really successful 10 million ARR businesses where they take home a couple million a year. And that's incredible for the founders and life-changing. So I would say the VC path is certainly not for everyone. That's a mismatch. I think, though, the things that VCs are looking for has stayed fairly consistent. If you're a founder, team is going to be one of the most important things. Ultimately, so much can change in the market and many things are out of our control, but the person at the helm of the business and making those decisions, as Kevin said, recruiting people, shaping the vision, making hard decisions through the highs and lows, that person is going to be really important. So thinking about team, how you're framing that, traction, the other big one, what are some of those early signs of interest from customers? Then I think the third one for all investors that people are still looking at is, what is the market opportunity here? Does this have the potential to be a venture scale outcome? Top down, that big number that everyone has in their deck, the hundreds of tens of billions is great, but that bottoms up market sizing as well of who are the people who are actually going to be using this and what do we feel is a viable path? Are there tailwinds in this space? I feel has remained pretty consistent.
I love that, Olivia. If I can add a quick follow on, you're talking about, some really important things around VC's not for everyone. And I think when you're clear about what your market is and what you want to build, you're going to attract the angels who want that and the family offices. Like someone told me that there's as much family office money in the US as VC. That's wild, but you don't see them. They really aren't obvious, but they will find you, so big McCain company has a family office. That's one of the sort of obvious ones in Canada, but there's so many family offices that are very active in investing in their space, but they don't have any inbound because people don't know they exist. If you're in your industry and you know your industry, they will find you, right? So working those relationships to be very crisp on who you are and the kind of team that you are building is going to attract those. Yeah. How do we become attractive? That folks are just asking, and that it's being precise. Like it is positioning very clearly around your ICP, what you want to own, and the GTM, and how that's going to work for your venture. That's scratching the surface, but I think the point is to be who you are, not try to fit everything.
I love that. I think we're going to move slowly into the networking because I think that's a perfect segue into that. And that was kind of what a lot of this conversation we want to be around is networking. And put a 1 in the chat if you have sent a cold DM on LinkedIn to an investor. It's okay. No shame. No shame. Yeah. Yep.
Put a 2 if you've actually DM'd an investor who's on this call. Maybe Bettina.
Yeah.
maybe
I love it.
They don't no one wants to out themselves.
I got
Out yourself. Safe
1,500
space.
1,500 DMs in 48 hours last week.
That's
And
yeah. See, this is
I
why we're
read
doing
all
this.
of them, and I responded.
You're
to
an
all of
outlier. I'm sure a lot of people on
But
here have sent
it's
those.
hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
And in terms, we're going to talk about the networking side because that's what we want this call to be around. And this is, I think, where a lot of us who, if you're a founder, you're like, how do I actually get in front of a VC? And how do I get in front of these people who have the purse strings without one being annoying and to actually being able to build those relationships long term? Because it's not just I want the check now, see you later or see you never. It really is all about that, the long term. And so this is where we're gonna get into now. And the first kind of question I wanted to ask was, the topic is network like you don't need anything, which is hard when you need a check. But we're gonna stick with this theme of networking like you don't need anything. And Olivia, I'm gonna ask you this question, but what does it look like when someone's networking from a place of need versus a place of actual confidence?
I think there's a greater level, obviously, of urgency. I think I see this a lot of times. I was just on a call with one of my founders earlier today. I'm working 1 day a week for one of our portfolio companies, and we closed our first pilot today. One of the things in that conversation, but also I see a lot of times if there's urgency in fundraising, is you feel the need of I really need this person to say yes to me, or I need this conversation to move forward. And that's a tough place to be in. It's hard to do discovery in that phase. I feel when I'm stressed, I don't show up well in the world. I'm not creative thinker at all. And the advice though that I would give to folks is, let's say, you're planning to go out to fundraise in 3 or 4 months time. You're not going to be in market yet. You're gearing up towards, hitting some certain milestones and then kind of going out to raise. I wouldn't spend a bunch of time trying to just have any random conversation with VCs. VCs are incentivized to take as many calls with founders as possible and gather as much information as they can. That's probably not the best use of your time. You have customers to talk to and things to do. I would make a list of who are the 10 investors that you would absolutely love to have on your cap table. They would be the dream people. And I would connect with those people on LinkedIn. I would start actively sharing my founding story. I would be commenting on things that they're doing. So I'm in their kind of weird ether that they're seeing my name, they're popping up in places. And I might try to go to some events. I might reach out to one of these people specifically and say hey, Sasha, loved your thesis piece about X. I'm building in the space, would kind of love to share a little bit more. And I would try to control that story. I wouldn't really say very much about numbers or traction. I'm trying to do two things on that call. Or coffee meetup. I'm trying to have them walk away feeling at the end of the call like Olivia had this magnetic, charismatic energy that just like I wanted to continue this conversation. Like I just wanted to keep talking to her. And she really understands this space. She's got like a big vision. So I'm telling like the big picture vision. You're not telling them specific metrics because they're going to write those down. And then 6 months later, when you fundraise, they're going to compare, what did you say when I met you 6 months ago? But I think going in with just like, let me kind of build these relationships, connect with people. Let's start connecting online so they can see me in their ether. I would say those two simple things like really help and come from a place of like exploration and just meeting people versus I need to close this round in 12 weeks or like I'm going to run out of money. And I like, there's a lot of urgency in that.
Totally. I'll add, do your research, right, on fit. I think I coach a lot of the founders I meet on Hubble and my startups. How do you become?
You coach all 1,500.
I try.
Just in a week.
It's hard. I don't sleep very much. How to make yourself irresistible, like Olivia said. Offer help, right? It's not, don't beg for money. I don't like, it's not, please don't beg. Come from a position of strength, offer help. You're good in something, right? Identify your dream team, offer help, be irresistible to those people. And when you need them, they'll remember you. People are on LinkedIn is super powerful. Mm-hmm. It's why I invest my waking hours on it. I have time. Comment, and they'll notice you.
There's a really good question in the chat, actually. How do you make that list of best investors? I'm going to bring it to Judah. And like when you were raising, did you have a list or did you, how did you kind of compile the list of like best investors? Are there good resources on it? Yep. Use Hubble, but outside of Hubble.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's the most specific like piece of tidbit when you're going out to fundraise. Is first of all, understand that you're going to be having a lot of conversations and you're going to be told no more often than you're told yes. And you really can use that as free due diligence feedback, right? Because if the investor's taking the time, obviously there is a little bit of a process in place. If you understand the VC side of it, where associates have like a quota to like kind of build out their scope of the land. But I think if you get very specific around, there's a lot of databases out there, especially if you're like in an accelerator program, but there's so many, we see on LinkedIn, people sharing networks, but it's not that hard. I would say you could probably spend $150. I don't want to call out a specific platform necessarily because other than Hubble, that's going to be able to help kind of get you an idea of who those customers are, and then you can even see how much dry powder they have, right? So let's say, and I'm talking on the VC side, I think obviously earlier on to me, angel investor were always a lot easier because that was more of a conviction bet than it was necessarily hard metrics where you're having that LP go out and basically repitch your narrative and trying to get 6 people to sign off on it. So I know a little off track, but I'll circle back. So yeah, you want to be very intentional on that list. 20 is a minimum. I would say probably closer to 50. And I think one hack that really helped me, and not in a self-serving way, but it ended up being where I've actually made a lot of my great friends in this space, was once I got connected to I had my master list of my top funds that I wanted to work with. I started to reach out to portfolio founders that were actually in that, like in the fund, right? And started to just connect with them, see what I could do to help with them, and then eventually would ask for a call. And then we're all humans, right? We all kind of experience a lot of the same challenges, especially when you're building companies, regardless of the stage. And that conversion rate, when you're getting a warm introduction, especially from a trusted, operator, in their network, was massive. And I would say that's something that maybe I've not seen a lot of people recommend, but it was really big. And as I forget who mentioned it earlier, but you're not for everyone, and you don't want to be for everyone, because this is a marriage. It's a very long commitment. You have very few shots at bat once you raise, $4 or $5 million, whatever that amount might be. You're kind of stuck with that for a while. It's not necessarily going to be something that you just get to go 2 weeks out or say, oh, I won't, we need to exchange. And so and that's another thing I got when I worked with founders, is I got to see under the hood. How do they operate? How do they support you? How do they get you to go to market? Would you take the money again? And the beautiful thing is founders will give you, like, they want to help each other, right? We're all kind of in this, like, fighting up the hill with one arm behind our back mentality. So I would say those are just a few things that are really important. And if you don't have that list, you might as well stop fundraising, because the spray and pray approach will not get you any money that's worth your while.
Those are awesome points. Maybe I'll build on that, Olivia. I think what Jude was saying about, having a few different groups that you're covering. I just want to touch a bit on drivers of choice for investors, right? Like, we're not just doing this for the return, although everybody wants a return. It's because we love this space, right? We love tech. We love specific industries, right? Like, there's a deep curiosity among people who invest in tech. This is not you and your like managed portfolio and your passive investor. Like, that is not what we're here for. There's a whole bunch of drivers around, like advancing industry, like creating a healthier ocean, like economic development, seeing businesses that will sustain an economy or grow an economy, leaving a legacy for their family, but doing all sorts of things. Like, those are the reasons investors do what they do. So know why you're doing this, because that's how you connect. If you were going to reach out to someone because you've got a new way to help oceans be cleaner, then you should be writing to the guy or the woman who invests in oceans because it's what they care about. And then you'll have something to talk about. Like, people often ask, well, what do I say to build that relationship? It doesn't start from like, what are you doing on LinkedIn today? It's got to be from a place of curiosity. And Sasha's laughing, but this is what we see, right? And I'm sure Bettina can concur. Either it's that, or there's no message. It's just to add an invitation. There's nothing to go on. If you just add me as a connection, I have no idea who you are. So, use outreach. This is my practical bit. People are asking, where do I even start with the investors? One practical thing to do is look for local or sector-based accelerators and get their input. Okay, so at least you're going to have the soft touch of an accelerator who will always take your call, almost always, right? And help a starter or an incubator that's reputable, and get to know who's a big player in your space, rather than just starting from nothing, or sending those connections to people because they have investor in their LinkedIn title.
I'm just gonna do some little horns. Really, yeah. Please, like, do your research, guys. The amount of messages even I get around random things, I'm like, look at my profile. Moving into the investor emotional intelligence and like founder relationships, I think we'll kind of go into this, and then we'll go into the Q&A feature. One of the questions that one Judah kind of brought up that I want to kind of circle back to, but when you are listening to pitches like back to back as investors, what actually makes one stand out among the noise, and like what can founders really dial in on in their storytelling?
Yeah, maybe I'll take this because I think storytelling is half of the battle. I mean, I know kind of contrary to what I said earlier, because 5 years ago, I think a lot of it was storytelling, and it was we were at a zero interest rate, and it was grow at all cost. The reality is, though, half of it, especially early stage, is being really well versed at telling your why, and telling why you're the person that they should bet on, right? Because there's a lot of great startups with metrics out there that you've never heard about. And the thing is maybe they went under, they're just not, operating at the scale of which, they thought they would. But the thing that I've seen most successful is when, and this, I don't think has to be the role, but typically it's when a founder has actually experienced a problem themselves, and it's something that they relate to deeply, and that creates that kind of emotional connection that also helps build, more kind of, I would say, trust that they're going to be in this for the long haul, right? No one's expecting to fund especially early stage, just to fund a company and exit out. I mean, it's a 5 to 7 year process. Could be longer, could be shorter, but that's typically the case. And so I think the obsession of the pain point and the why that you're doing it is so much more appealing and so much more attention grabbing, and kind of pulls in and allows some of maybe the warts that might be in some of the areas that you're still working on to be overcame. And one of the pieces of advice I want to mention, because it might not come up, but investors are looking for a no. And I would say that not in a negative way, but they get so much deal flow, especially with just the amount of startups that America has. They're looking for a no. So give them less reasons to say no. And one of the most important things that is going to be the first check on the box is, can this founder tell a story? Because storytelling is also selling, and selling is what you're doing through the entire life cycle of your startup. And you might not think you're good at sales, or you might not think of yourself as a salesperson. You don't have to work in sales, but you're selling your co-founder, you're selling your investors, you're selling your team, you're selling the days that people are getting kicked while they're down. I mean, you're selling customers. It's just a constant process of selling. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents on that.
I would add, plus 100 on all the storytelling thing. I think a lot of pitches are very product led, and it helps so much to hear it through that lens of a story and the opportunity. But one tactical thing that my portfolio has seen a lot of success with is how you control kind of the story and narrative after you have that first conversation. So, a lot of, you might have a call with an investor, they're going to tell you some next steps. We generally advise our founders is like, anytime you reach back out to an investor, you should have some like highlight momentum thing to share. And it could be small. It could be like, we just talked to 3 new customers this week. They're all moving down funnel. We're so excited. Or like, we just closed a new customer. So that every time you're following up, you are controlling this feeling of like, oh, the business is moving forward. Like, there is urgency. Things are happening. We have all this progress. A lot of times, and this is true in sales as well, is the communication kind of post first call is like, hey, just following up, like, need anything else from me? How is everything going on your end? Which puts, you kind of in the passive seat of waiting for this person to respond. And so I would say, one really important point of the story as well is like, how do you continue to create that feeling of momentum in your communication throughout the process?
Yeah, and
So
to add
good.
to that, Olivia, I think it's an important differentiation. Please tell me if you disagree. Don't follow up by just saying, hey, checking in, how's things going? But have solid data points, be concise, and make it digestible within a 10-second read on your phone. Because you're right. You're building that relationship. You're building that awareness. We have LinkedIn, we have touch points. They want to trust you. They want to be able to say, like, this is someone that I know is going to execute.
Yeah. It's awesome. There's a saying, you can't tell someone you're funny. You have to make them laugh, right? So the things that you do in that pitch tell a big story about who you are, right? One of the things that I always suggest is have enough slides for half the time you're allocated. Half. Like, I guarantee you, if they're giving you 10 minutes, you should have 5 minutes of slides and go from there. Hopefully you get more time than that, but sometimes that's the way it is. Being respectful of your audience, that's part of it, right? But asking them questions. So often we get into this and we just start throwing stuff across the screen so we can get in as much content as possible. But that's not respectful, right? Someone popped up lived experience as capability. How do we use that? I mean, that's one of the strongest whys you've got. That goes a long way. So your purpose plays a huge role in proving that you're in it for the long haul. When you're doing kind of, I keep making fun of productivity AI, but when you're just building a productivity AI because it's the new thing, I don't know why this matters to you. Show me why in year 4 and year 5, you're going to be still in it, right? And it matters to you. I think we've seen some questions around the A team as well, like especially for technical founders, you know, you need to be in a position where you're in the highest and best use. If you're a PhD in battery technology, I want to know that those capabilities are being used, but also that the complementary capabilities are on the team. So, and if not, say why and what you might do about it. And the last one is use of proceeds. Like I think we often see like use of proceeds are like marketing, operations, and something else. And that tells me nothing about the other thing we talked about a lot today, which is go to market. You know, really flagging some things you know in specific that you want to use those funds for and the gaps that you have and that you want to learn about them. So you can demonstrate that you're curious and that you know you have blind spots, even if you don't know what they are yet, by saying, look, these things are going to be important. I've done my research. We don't know what those things are yet, but when we look at investors we want to work with, having those areas of expertise on that team would be really great for us because we don't know them. We're battery engineers, whatever it is, right? So those are a few points from me.
I love those. I think we'll finish with, I love one of Bettina's questions around what makes the founder irresistible. I think we're gonna kind of finish on, finish on that. And I think not only irresistible in that first meeting, but irresistible to continue backing even after the investment. And, you know, what makes, you know, repeatable founders so yeah, irresistible. So.
Yeah, I mean, the due diligence, everyone's talked about it. Are you chasing a humongous market? Have you identified your solution for that problem? Do you have customers that have validated? That's all candy. That's catnip to an investor. But in the end, for me, I invest, I think I posted about this, I invest in you, the founder. So I really have to get to know you. So your story is super important in my due diligence. And if I have to know you're an effective 24/7 salesperson. You can try to sell your story, but if it doesn't land, that's hard. You can teach yourself to get better at it, but you have to be effective at attracting the best people, attracting the best investors. I think I've used this before, getting in front of me. Be a cat, not a puppy. They're not begging for money. I should be wanting to meet you. Tell me all your proof points, right? So I fall in love. I have to fall in love with the founder. That's what I have. You know, that's me. I invest in pre-seed, pre-revenue, and I go through that, and then I repeat. And so it's a great journey. That's what I do.
Aaron, I'll ask you that, and then we'll go to Olivia and then Judah around like how to be an irresistible founder.
Yeah, like be yourself. Be yourself. Oh my gosh. I just want to know you. Like that, it's so different talking to someone who is doing this thing because they want to run a startup and be a big deal, and someone who's like, but we're going to make it easier to scan retinas for brain damage. And they're like, they have to do this thing, right? Like, show me why you're like burning to make this thing happen. I shouldn't have to tell you, show me, right? Like you should be picking something that matters to you, and dig deep for that. And then the other one is like that curiosity and a growth mindset. Like it's so evident who has a growth mindset and who is like, ready to just evolve. Because I've got a friend, I don't know if anybody knows Two Small Fish Ventures, like Alan Lau says, you as a CEO will become unrecognizable to yourself every 2 years. That's how much your role needs to change. So I'm looking for that kind of a person who knows it's going to keep changing and will have the agility to roll with that. So those are some other features for me.
Judah, take it away. You're on mute. Come back.
Has to happen at least once.
Has to happen once
per
on the
panel.
call.
And we almost made it, so let's get that out of the way. So I think as a like there's a lot of the just building off of a lot of what's already been said. End of the day, people are humans, and I think there's authenticity that is so crucial to what it is that you're doing. And I'm not taking away from anything else that needs to happen, but that's the first key pillar. Is it really is be yourself, right? And don't do performative theatrics and anything, because it's just gonna not vibe, right? You're gonna be, this is just not gonna be a good fit. But I would also say, as a second and third time founder, it becomes a lot different. But as a first time founder, I think you just have to really convince those investors that it's like you're going to essentially, like, you either have some like some vision that is like you see something that other people are not seeing. You have visible momentum, right? You have like a calm obsession, and then just ruthless follow through, right? And I think there's a lot of characteristics that our life builds us up to where you can point to different things that you've done that, but specifically within a founding role, that gets compounded. Those four kind of key pillars, creates a really exciting person. And we all know the saying, like, you're betting on the jockey, not the horse, because realistically, at pre-seed, your company is not going to look like it's similar to your CEO role in 2 years. It's going to look totally different. Your pre-seed is not going to be what ends up scaling or having product market fit. But if someone has enough conviction in you, they're really investing in you. And I would also say too, it's really important to also be self-aware of where your weaknesses are. No founder expects you, or no investor expects you to have it all figured out. And if you tell them and you pretend that you do, you're delusional, and you should probably not start a company. The best asset you can have is a co-founder it is complementary. But you can also be, very self-aware. Hey, I'm good at this, X, Y, Z, and this is not the areas that I'm expertise. I want you to help me. No VC is going to work for you. Maybe they will. Actually, there's some on this call that sounds like they're going to, and that's amazing. But the reality is it's being grounded, being calmly obsessed, is the word I like to use, and then just like being a bulldog and a cockroach, stay alive and continue to build momentum. And those things kind of compound. Put yourself out there. LinkedIn's so important. It really is. And we live in a world where we have an unfair advantage that a lot of founders didn't have 10 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, where the professional social networking wasn't there. So yeah, I could go on, but I think I'll stop there, because I think there's a lot of Q&As, and maybe but there was a question, Bettina.
Could I add something quick, Sasha?
Yes.
On the note of, if you being self-aware that you're not good at some things, I'd like to suggest, as a founder, identify leaders you want to bring on as board advisor. They can be your fractional CFO, your fractional strategy person. I'm on the board, invested in a startup, solo founder. Probably half of his board advisors he met through Hubble calls. This is cognate, Kevin. I mean, the founder has done a masterful job realizing what he's good at, what he isn't. And now we're all working for him. We are all his ambassadors, his go-to-market, his sales and marketing, you name it, because we fell in love with the founders. So I, allocate some equity for your board advisors, and then they'll work for you.
Dang. Mic drop. We're gonna enter into a little bit of a Q&A. So if I think some people have been putting in their questions into the chat. This just enables me to kind of pick some questions. There was one that I want to start off with, and then I'll kind of have people come off mute as well. So yeah, Andrew, I got you. So this is the question. I really like this one. But how do you best kind of go with connectors without? Actually, I'll have you come off mute for this. Ask your question in like a sentence, and this will enable go short and sweet, and that way we have some time for discussion.
Yep. Hello, everyone. The question was, how do you best interface with connectors? Because it seems like a few people kind of have shared connections with all of our targets. We've been doing practice pitches, but really the question is, how do you best interface with these connectors so that you're not asking them to like go out on a limb for you, and they're actually advocating for you and as excited about what you're building as you are?
I got one. Meet with me. Before I connect anybody, I have to get to know you, right? My network is my treasured, it's my reputation. So if I'm going to vouch for you, introduce you, I have to get to know you. And if we haven't worked together, so meetups work, Hubble works, Boardy introducing you to people works. It's one of my, people ask me, well, can you just introduce me after I say, no, this doesn't fit my investment. I have to get to know them first. So that's my advice.
And if I can say one thing to that real quick, I think it's, and this is my personal opinion, if someone passes on your round, I don't necessarily think it's a good question to ask them to introduce you to other investors, because if they don't have enough conviction to invest, then that's not necessarily the best framing. That's just my personal opinion on it.
So some of the things I like to do would include like understanding who you're talking to. So if you're looking up Bettina, you'll get to know what she's about, and you should talk to her as a human, right? Of course. But I think that if someone passes, but if you're hoping for them to lead you to someone else, asking what is working or isn't, like get practice at saying the hard questions. If you need help with hard questions, ask Claude, ask GPT, whatever. Say, I'm going to be talking to this person and I need challenging questions so that I'm ready for that. Like come up with drafts and practice it so that you can say, if this isn't for you, can you tell me why? And, one of the values I've had at an incubator I ran for deep tech was clear as kind. Like it's total Brene Brown, but like being clear is kind. So ask for people to give you proper feedback. If you're lucky, those investors or connectors will say what it is that isn't working, and they're being generous. So thank them for the feedback. If they've got stuff that is actionable, do something about it, and maybe come back to them and say, you know what, we really heard that point about our founding team, and we've tried this. Like, I'm interested in if that changes things for you. And if it doesn't, that's fine. But at least it gives you more of a dialogue and shows a sense of curiosity and a growth mindset. And that goes a long way for me wanting to connect you with other people if you're not a fit for me.
Andrew, what does your company do?
So we're Realm Realty is the parent company, but our actual product is Myra. I was a realtor for 5 years, and it's pretty outdated space. There's like still fax machines being used. So we're an enterprise solution for individual and enterprise solution for the realtors. We take like the three main time-consuming workflows and condense them into a call-based interface. There's also a traditional dashboard, but realtors are always driving, so having the like phone-based, or you could just call it like it's a human, is a huge winning point for our early users.
That's awesome. One thing I would totally encourage, like whatever business you're working in, you're passionate, you're choosing to do this, right? talk about that passion. Like, talk about that dream. Talk about like the impact that your business is going to have. Talk about it online. Talk about it on LinkedIn. Talk about it when you go to realtor meetups.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that you'll find, you're not even asking for introductions from anybody. You're just talking about what you're passionate about. When people are really passionate about something, there's something about that that sticks with folks. And whether they introduce you in that moment or not, you're going to be remembered. And the next time that they may meet somebody who would be a perfect fit for you, you're going to get a text out of the blue or an email out of the blue from that person. So I would just totally encourage, whether you're working on this or something completely different, be passionate about the thing you're working on, talk about it, and the right people, it just takes one person to hear it.
I might
Yeah.
add one last little thing here as well. If I may, treat it as like dating, right? Like with a lot of this, you don't just go out with someone and like, hey, do you want to go back? But to build an actual really like long lasting relationship with someone, you talk to them, you help them, and there's a rule of reciprocity that when you help them, then even if it's a small thing, then psychologically they feel so indebted to you that they're going to go even bigger. And they're going to be like, you know what, you helped me just like with this one little, I don't know, LinkedIn post or whatever, or you helped introduce me, or you took out my garbage. Now I'm going to do something so much bigger for you. And it's that really, just like the rule of reciprocity, and it always comes back. So the more that you do good out and like help people, and this is what I love about Kevin, is, it always comes back and people become your champions because they see how much you love it.
A quick story. Sorry, Judah, let me tell a quick story. So one of the first viral posts I ever wrote on LinkedIn was about Uber's first investor and how much his investment was worth at IPO. And like a bunch of people saw it, liked it, commented on it. I'm going through the comments and I'm like, who is this dude? He has like 500 likes on his comment, right? So I click on it. I'm like, oh shoot, that's the guy I just wrote about. It was like 2 years ago. I click on his name. It's Mike Walsh. He's awesome. I connect with him. Over the next like year and a half, we just engaged like a little bit. I'd like some of his stuff. He'd like some of mine, just like nothing, super casual. Then Hubble came around and we're launching our first cohort. I'm like, Mike would be great. First investor in Uber, Salesforce. Like, these are the people we want on the platform, right? I onboard him on a call just like this. At the very end of the call, he's like, hey, he kind of caught me off guard. He's like, hey, are you raising for this? And it kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't even sure if we were. Long story short, he ends up basically co-leading our pre-seed round. A day after that, I wake up to a DM. He signed the paperwork and he wired the money, and that was like almost like this year and a half long story that just started from just writing about something I was curious about and going through the comments. And sometimes it takes that long. But I think the intention behind it was never, oh, I'm going to get Mike on the cap table, right? It was just, I was writing something I was passionate about, following my curiosity, and like slowly building rapport in a relationship. Anyways, Judah, if you remember.
Now I have to say, I had the same investor, Mike, an amazing investor. And I remember that post, and it's amazing to see how that happens, because that is how this happens. You're playing the long game. It's not, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. But the thing I just wanted to double tap on is what Sasha was saying. Like, anytime you're trying to, and that's the thing, like, everyone wants to make it transactional, but it's a small world, right? Especially once you get in there, people just call it a club. They can say whatever they want, but I don't come from a club. I come from West Virginia. I grew up in, very outside of kind of your traditional maybe club status, but lead with value, right? So it's, how can you help this individual in some form capacity, and that would change 90% of the other requests that I get on a daily basis on my DM. Can you introduce me to this person? Can you introduce me to this person? This person? It's like, and you get to a point to where you want to help because genuinely it's like, why not? But at the end of the day, you only have so many hours that you're able to do, and so that makes a big difference when you're leading with the give first mentality.
I
Yeah.
love that. There was a question I saw also in the comments from Laura around doing this in stealth. And like Kevin, you always talk about building in public. Building in public is a huge thing right now. But you know, what if it's like you're working full-time job and you can't talk about it, or you're working in like a defense or like deep tech and it's kind of, you know, there's still IP that's being negotiated or like, you know, filed. So what's the pros and cons of building in public, and like what can you do if you are building in stealth? How can you still build the same relationships? Laura, if you want to come off mute as well, and if I did it justice, hopefully I did, but please add some more color if needed.
No, I think you definitely like summarized kind of what I've been going through. And hi, Bettina and Kevin, we met actually a while ago. Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, like that's kind of what I'm going through, and I'm trying to do a lot of like conversations on the side, and that's been successful, but not being able to really leverage LinkedIn. It's challenging. So yeah, I'd love to hear.
Is anyone else building in stealth? Sorry, is anyone else building in stealth? Like put a little 1 or 2 and a 1 in the comments if you are building in stealth. That way we kind of know who's in here. Okay, perfect. So yeah, you're not alone. You're not alone, Laura. There's a lot of you building in stealth.
I'm not invested in Hubble, but I gotta, you know, suggest those connections that you can make through that and through Boardy are pretty amazing, right? Because we're all networked, right? That's the whole thing, is you're going to get those connections that help you do this in stealth. Yeah, I mean, we've all been praising LinkedIn, but it has its limits, doesn't it? Right? Like sometimes it just feels like you're shouting into the void, and you have to keep the pace up to stay in the right algorithm, and on and on and on. So, you know, I think with Boardy, you can think really differently about how you use Boardy. I know Bettina has experimented a ton. She and I both have been in it since it was probably November last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's almost like, you know, a lot of innovations are, they start with one job and then they become used for something else, right? Like 3M stickies didn't come because they were supposed to be stickies. It was for some other application. That's what Boardy has been like, right? Like I think Bettina started asking different kinds of questions and it became more of a dialogue. And the more vulnerability you can provide, recognizing we all have privacy things, the more that you'll find there are different ways of sort of building connections, right? Go on with a totally different intention one day from the next one. And it's not just, hi, I need to connect because I need investors, like, blah. Take a certain aspect of your business and dive deep into that and think about connections that will help you with that and see where those introductions go. You know,
I use Boardy as a strategy sounding board, definitely. So Laura, urge you to do that. And, you know, serendipity happens, right? 6 degrees of separation. Now that we've met, I can, you know, introducing you to some people, right? And Boardy can soundboard with you.
Awesome. Thanks.
I'm gonna butcher your name, Mornay. I owe you an email, but please come off of mute and ask your question.
Hi, Sasha. Yes, thanks. Hi, Kevin. I would just, from my perspective, I mean, Cognate, that's my startup. We've done quite well over the last couple of months. And I can just say that if you're not using Hubble as your primary mode of reaching out, you should put some money aside every month and just book meetings in Hubble. Hands down, Hubble has been my best $1,000 investment per month. The people that you meet, it's easy to.
He's not a paid actor, by the way, everyone.
But I will say, like, I was stuck in Australia. The thing with what I'm building is people either get it or they don't. It's as simple as that. But when you get stuck in a conversation with VCs and investors and you're trying to raise money, and what happens is you become at risk of making the VC your customer, and they start to influence the direction you go. And you have to be able to step back and say, well, where am I getting my value from? And for me, I can't even remember how I stumbled upon Hubble. I was looking for LinkedIn alternatives because, for me personally, LinkedIn isn't that effective. And I started to research every single person that has either invested in or say that they are active investors. And then I literally do research. I think the first person I met was with Katie Dunn. She's amazing. And then from Katie Dunn, I met with Catherine. Me and Catherine bonded straight off the bat. And Catherine is an artistic intellectual property. And if you guys haven't reached out to Catherine, she protects your IP. And Cogniate now has over $12 million worth of IP ready to go and submit. And through Catherine, I also met Bettina, and Bettina introduced me to Jason, who's co-chair of my company. So Hubble, I've probably invested just over, probably around $2,000 in meetings. Not all of them have been led to a board position, but every single one has been way more useful than one that has ones that I'm trying to cold outreach. And I don't know, there was Katie on Monday published a post about, I guess she receives a lot of cold outreach. And the particular individual had no idea what a portfolio is. And if you go like that, I think, I mean, I just do my examples because I'm trying to meet people, and the area is it's small. So if you're in San Fran, please DM me. I'd love to have a coffee. But I think while the area is big, it's also small. It's much more productive if you know who you're reaching out to, rather than cold outreach. I mean, I started to put myself out there in the first place, but if you know the person you're reaching out to, and you know what's in, they can see what's in it for them right off the bat, you have a much higher chance of getting an investment, or actually just build a relationship. The money will come once the customers is on board. Anyway, that was my 2 cents.
We love it. He's not a paid actor, but yeah, that's the power of Hubble. We're gonna finish off with one final question, which I have here, which is something that I think, Kevin, I'm actually gonna direct to you, sneakily enough. And then also maybe to Judah as well, around how do you actually get your lead investor, and like what does it take, and what does that actually look like for people who are not, who are just starting that raise.
You want to take it, Judah?
You're fresh off the griddle, my friend.
Yeah, well, you guys kind of heard. What does it take? It took 20 rejections. And I was like, what the heck? But I will say, it's repetition. And each time that we were getting rejected, Hubble kind of went from this marketplace to like this marketplace and this data company. So what does it take? You have to have grit. You have to have fortitude. You have to have an open mind. You have to learn each time you go into a pitch. When you don't pitch for a while, also, you're going to be rusty. Yeah. So the first couple, you're like, dude, that sucked. Like, it's just going to suck. And then by the third, fourth, fifth, it's going to get better. And then, you just make your pitch better each time. You listen to feedback. You're objective. You take a step back and you figure out, like, in our case, how can Hubble be more valuable? How can the product be stickier? What else can we add to it? What else to the story needs to have a little bit more depth? Or what are we thinking about in 2026 that maybe isn't big enough? So how do you get your lead investor? Repetition. If you're talking about a lead at the seed round, you're going to need to have traction. I think too many founders just try to go out and raise on an idea, and you can do this, but it's super rare. So you're going to need to have traction. You're going to need to have a lot of conviction. Conviction only happens from getting some sort of level of traction and talking to a lot of customers. Like, you experience the problem yourself, and that's one thing. And then once you actually have 40 customers or 50 customers and you're talking to them every day, the amount of conviction that you will internalize, and then in that meeting, you'll be able to share, the investor will feel it. They'll just feel it. It's not even coming from me. It's coming from all these thousands of conversations that I had. But anyways, how do you do it? It's kind of assortment of all of those things, but practice makes perfect. Don't give up. Stay at it. Just because it's only one investor. If they pass, there's another one. There's thousands of them. So never put all your eggs in one basket. And just show up. Like Aaron said, not everybody's for you.
And then when you say lead investor, there's actually been a few questions. What is lead investor?
Yeah, so a lead investor, so like, let's say we raise 4 million, right? Typically a lead is going to take at least half of that, usually. So like a $2 million investor, in our case, almost 3. So they're leading it. They're the biggest piece of the pie. They set the terms with you. So, we're raising it a $25 million valuation. There's a little bit of back and forth that happens with that lead. Once those terms are set, other people will come in, some smaller investors. And so that's the lead. Some investors don't want to lead. They only follow. So maybe, some investment thesis is like, hey, we only follow A16Z, or we only do follow on. So the lead may do the most due diligence, and then the smaller checks will come in after that. You want to add anything to that, Judah?
Yeah, it's beautifully said. Maybe add a few kind of key caveats more on the technical side, because it's super important. And just assuming we all know this is probably not a good assumption, right? But this was I certainly had no idea. Like, I thought all VCs were made the same, but you really need to understand, just like and when you're looking for your ICP as a customer, how the fund thesis actually works, because they might love you, but if you are not in their like check deployment size, this will be a whole separate conversation at a different time. Happy to go into details, but there really is a mechanism in place. And so I think that's a critical piece that a lot of investors miss, a lot of founders, especially first time miss, by just going after the wrong fund, even if they're in the same, like the right sector of investments, but they're not necessarily cut for your check size. Because, with Kevin doing the $4 million check, there's certain funds that wouldn't work, because they have to have a certain percentage of ownership at that certain point. So I think that's a critical component of it. And then just maybe a couple other things. You need to de-risk it for them. So really understanding the process. Typically you're fortunate if you're talking to like a managing partner, and there's kind of like a hierarchy. Most VCs, and obviously they're all a bit unique, but the MP is kind of higher sway, right? And so a lot of times when you're having a conversation, especially if it's through like a cold outreach, or they reach out to you, it's with an analyst. And the analyst jobs is to just extract information, to take it back. And we all know about the famous Monday meetings, right? And everyone kind of goes around, they say yes, no, and a lot of times it's going to be a no. But once you get through, say, okay, we're interested in going further, you really need to give them as much information to be able to pitch your business. And that's the thing that I'm like, I get nervous about, because I'm like, oh, let me pitch. But maybe you'll get to that stage, but there's stages before that person has to be able to digest what you're saying and communicate it in a way that there's 3 or 4 other people that haven't met you. And so they're basically sitting back and looking at data, and data cannot necessarily tell the whole story. It's an important component of it. And then last but not least, just because so lead investors, we all want that lead. You always want that lead investor, but at the same time, take kind of those angel investments, take the other pieces of it, because a lot of times that will lead the conviction for a lead investor to come in, because they show that, hey, there is at least this interest. You have, an LOI based off of having a lead investor. Maybe that fund can't lead. And the other thing, maybe the last thing I'll say is, just keep pushing, because they're out there, and when it happens, it's magical. And it's really exciting, because they start pitching you the business. This is what you should do. No, and they're not going to they can't force you. Don't get worried. I mean, not at this stage. But it really is a matter of they see the conviction, they see the opportunity, and they're like, oh, I wish we thought of this, and now we don't have to build the business. We can get the upside and support this amazing founding team. And just keep fighting the good fight and run your process. And the lead investor it'll come up, but a lot of it just comes down to the literal math and fundamentals of how funds are set up. And I would encourage everyone to that's serious about fundraising from funds. And there's lots of ways to raise. I've raised in a variety of ways, but understanding that dynamic is really important, and where they're at in the life cycle, where they're at in the capital deployment stage. So I'll shut up.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a second. I was like, I need to clear up for 2 seconds. I just want to say thank you to everyone. We are, as Aaron said, if you connect with people, please tell them that you were on this call and why you are connecting with them. Otherwise, yeah, Dylan, if I missed your DM or you missed your connection, because also have like 1,500, we are going to drop a link in the description now, and I'll also pass it out in a Luma blast in case it was missed. Kevin's going to do it, or just go on Kevin's profile.
Are we doing a post right now?
What was that?
Are we doing the post right now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We're gonna do the post now, or like you can come to it after and I'll post it.
This is for the prize where you help.
This is for the prize where
Oh my
Kevin's gonna
God.
help you with the fundraise. So this is your chance to showcase what you've learned and basically pitch in the comments on LinkedIn. Like I think we're gonna do at max 3 sentences. If it's a paragraph, you're out. We want it to be short, concise. Tell us why you need this prize. Tell us why, what you're doing and why you need this. And we're going to go through over the next day or so and do send out a big blast of the winner.
I just put a link. I know Patina, Aaron, you guys got to go. You were both incredible. Thank you so much. I just dropped the link in the post. You don't have to be a pitch. Just explain your startup. We'll pick one and we'll have some fun. We'll go through how to structure a fundraise, putting together your pitch deck, or work on your storytelling. I'll introduce you to a couple investors. Yeah, I think it'll be cool.
Basically, and then, yeah, we say, what do you guys want us to tag? Just either you'll comment, so that is the tag enough. If you would mean the world to us is if you like took a screenshot of this, or, a photo of you kind of, on the call, and just, tell us what you've learned. What are your biggest takeaways? We haven't done any marketing, so it's all just through LinkedIn and through posts. So if you've learned a lot, if you want to kind of share this with your friends, this would be absolutely incredible to just spread the message of Hubble. Again, if you want to book with anyone here, now you have their Hubbles. Just look them up. And yes, Kevin.
One more thing I just really wanted to say about wrapping up finding the lead, but it doesn't even have to just be a lead. It could just be an investor. As a founder, especially early on when I call this the time in the desert, when you're trying to figure it out, nothing's really working. You have to portray more confidence and optimism than the reality of what's actually happening. And it's a delicate dance, but my advice is always just be honest, always be upfront, lean into the stuff that's working and be honest about the stuff that's not, because I think it's very easy when you go to a pitch early on and like your retention sucks, you don't have any users, you don't have any revenue, to try to embellish the little bits of success or progress that you have. Just be real about it. And I think that sort of honesty will build a real connection, and those real connections build trust, and trust leads to an investor saying yes. So I would encourage everyone just to be honest about where you're at, where you're going, what the struggles are, and that you will figure it out.
Yeah, and then so for the link, again, I'll say it in case anyone missed it. So there should be a LinkedIn post in the description. If you've missed it, just go on Kevin's LinkedIn and it's going to be there. And just kind of tell us in a few sentences about your startup based on what you've learned, from this call, and why you need help fundraising. Kind of, and going off what Kevin just said, tell us some of the, a bit of the gnarly bits, not just all the big highlight reel of your product and what you're building. And again, if you just, maybe you'll do extra bonus points, maybe you'll do another surprise thing. If you post a photo of this call, tag everyone who is here, Kevin, myself, Judah, Aaron, we have everyone on the LinkedIn, and just give away, tell us some of the takeaways that you've learned from this. That just, again, helps spread the message, helps more people build amazing companies, and really spreads the love.
This was fantastic.
And if anyone ever has any ideas, message me.
And I think just while we're kind of going over, this was great. And just as feedback, the more concise you can be in describing what your startup does, I think the more impactful that is, because that shows that you're able to, digest. We live in a world of attention to, like, is very limited. So I would encourage everyone, hype it up and then probably cut it down in half, and that's probably going to do you more good than negativity. Just my 2 cents, I would guess that would be appropriate.
Exactly. Like, we are 5-year-olds. We don't know your
Exactly.
industry. We don't know what you're doing. So if you can explain it to me like I know nothing, because I probably do know nothing about your industry, the better. And that also shows that you know it. So just thank you guys again. We've had such an incredible time putting this on. We'll be doing another one in December. These will be monthly. If you have ideas, drop me a message. I'm here for everything that you guys need. And we have some fun things planned for 2026. Maybe a little fundraising series, getting all the down and dirty with it from the A to B. So who knows?
Maybe we'll throw a big party in person.
Maybe we'll throw a big party.
That's a good networking opportunity. I'm on board with that.
You won't have to go very far either, Judah. It'll probably be an SF.
Perfect. We'll see
have
what
a
I
party.
can. We'll
I
see if
might
I
take
can.
Hubble on tour next year. I'm in London. I was in New York
Nice.
yesterday and met up with some Hubblers. I'm in New Jersey. I'm in Arizona next week. If anyone's in Arizona, let me know. I'll be in Scottsdale. So I will be, Scottsdale next week. So we have some things planned. So if you're nice to Kevin, maybe we'll do a little Hubble on tour.
Right, y'all. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for being here. Yeah, please go drop those comments. We're really excited to read them. And we'll let you guys know by end of day tomorrow, which is Friday, the winner.
Good luck.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
May the odds ever be in your
Okay.
favor.